So in this video, I am going to show you how you can estimate multiplying whole numbers times decimals. So remember, with estimating, I can use what we call compatible numbers. Okay. Remember, another word for that is friendly numbers. Okay. So things that are easier to work with in your head. Okay, you can also use what we call front end estimation, okay, which really just means that whatever the number is, you round to the first digit. So for instance, if I have 183, I round to the first digit. If I have 75, I round to the first digit. Okay, so front end estimation, whatever that first digit is what you round to. Okay. And then we'd have just regular rounding to whatever place value we think is appropriate. Okay, so let's start with 87 hundredths times 112. Okay, now what I'm going to suggest to you is that when you have a decimal today, that you start thinking about whether that decimal is closer to a zero, a half, or a whole. Okay, this is also something that we do when we are estimating with fractions as well. So if I think of a number line and I have 0 here and 1 here, and then this is always a half, okay? Remember that another way to write a half is 5/10. Okay, so both of these are the same value, just this is a fraction, this is a decimal. So what I want to do is I want to think about this 87 hundredths and where it would go here on the number line. Okay, well, I know if this is an 8 and this is a 5, that the 8 has to be bigger. Right, and if I'm thinking about it, I think 87 hundredths is maybe about right there. Okay, so 87 hundredths would be closer to 1. So I'm going to change 87 hundredths to 1. Now, if I'm looking over here at 112, I could round that. I could round it to the tens place and get 110. I could round it to the hundreds place and get 100. However, 1 is a super friendly number, right? I should be able to multiply any number times 1 because that identity, I just forgot the word, the identity property, there we go. Identity property of multiplication says any number times 1 is that number. So in which case, I'm going to keep the 112 because I know I can do 1 times 112, and so my estimate would be 112. All right, so I'm going to erase some of this so that we can have some more room, but I want to keep up those words and the rounding information up here. Okay, so the next one that we're going to work with is 9 and 2 hundredths times 80. All right, well, when I see this 9 and 2 hundredths, I'm going to use front end estimation, okay, which means I'm going to look at this first digit. Well, 9 and 2 hundredths would be rounded to 9 because it's closer to 9 than it is to 10. Okay, and you can think about that. Pardon Lincoln, he's having an issue. You can think about that in regards to money. If this is $9.02, this would be much closer to $9 than it would be to 10. Okay, and now when I'm looking at 80, I am going to keep the 80 because it's already rounded. Okay, and so now this is just like our whole number estimating that we did before. Now I do the fact, which is 9 times 8 is 72, and any zeros that are left, I add into my product. So my estimate here is 720. All right, let's get some room. We'll do another one. All right, for this one, we have, whoops, what's going on? Come on, you can do it. Okay, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Let's see about a different color. For this problem, we're going to do 33 and 5/100ths times 200. And this is a lot like the last one that we did that was the 9 and 200ths. Since this is a decimal and it's to the hundredths place, I want to round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so that's another option over here, rounding to the nearest whole number. Okay, so I'm going to round this 33 and 5/100ths. If I look here, I'm rounding to the nearest whole number and there's nothing next door, so that means the 3 stays. So I'm going to round it to 33. Now, if I used front end estimation instead and I rounded here, which is an option, then I could round this to 30. Okay. This one I would use more if I can, like if I can use this and it's still a friendly number with the other factor, then I would use that. Okay, because when I go to 30, I'm actually getting further away from the real answer. And remember, estimating, I want to get close to the real answer. Now, looking at 200, I see that 200 is already rounded. So I'm going to put 200 on both of these. Okay, well, so now I do the fact. 33 times 2. Well, remember 33 times 2 is the same thing as 33 plus 33. So I can get that in my head, right? So this would be a 66, and then I still have 2 zeros. So this estimate is 6,600. Over here, I do the fact. So 3 times 2 is 6, and I have 1, 2, 3 zeros left over. Okay, so both of these are pretty close together. If I were to do the actual answer, let me do that real quick. Place down my zeros, that would be a 10, a 6, a 6. So my actual answer is 6,610. So out of these two, this one is the closer answer to the actual answer, the closer estimate, I should say, because I kept the 33 instead of changing it to 30. Now this is still pretty close. And if I'm using my estimating skills as a way to check for reasonableness, then I would still say that I'm pretty close. So honestly, it doesn't matter which one. It's just that if you use this one, it gets you closer to the real answer. All right. We'll do a couple more together on this video. Draw. Let's do an orangish color this time. All right, so now we're going to have 104 times 33/100ths. Now, when I'm looking at 104, that is not a very friendly number. Okay, so I'm going to change that, I think, to 100. Okay, I used a compatible number. So 104 is not friendly, so I'm going to round it to 100. All right, then looking at 33/100ths. Okay, if I use this number line that we did up here, remember I want to be either close to 0, a half, or a whole. 33/100ths would come about right here. Okay, and that is, it's kind of hard to tell, but 33/100ths is closer to a half. Okay, so I'm going to call this 33/100ths. I'm going to round it to a half. Now, when I multiply any number times a half, remember I can write a half both ways. Really what I'm doing is the same thing as dividing by 2. Okay, because think about a pizza. If I have a pizza and I ask you to cut it in half, okay? Multiplying by a half. Really when I'm doing it is I'm dividing by 2, right? Because this is one person, this is two persons. So multiplying by half is the same as dividing by 2. So take 100, okay? And you multiply times a half, which means divide by 2. So what is half of 100? Well, that would be 50. So my estimate here would be 50. And that concept of dividing by a half and multiplying, or excuse me, dividing by a half. Oh my, I can't speak today. The concept of dividing by 2 or multiplying by a half is a very important concept that you will do a lot more of next year when you go to 6th grade. So now I have 54 hundredths and I want to multiply times 24. Well, thinking about 54 hundredths, if I was going to put 54 hundredths on this number line, it would be super close right here to the 5/10. So I would say that this is definitely close to a half. So I'm going to make this a half. And because this is a half, and like I just said, multiplying by a half is the same as dividing by 2, okay? Because of that, I'm going to keep this 24 because I know I can cut 24 into 2 pieces, okay? Or 2 groups, I should say. So half of 24 is 12. So my estimate here is 12. All right, last one that we're going to do on this video. Then you'll do some with Mrs. Higby. This is going to be 79 hundredths times 51. All right, well, I know we're getting a little crowded over here. Okay, I see that this one right here was 87 hundredths. Well, I know 79 hundredths has to be really close to 87 hundredths. Okay, and so in this case, it is close to half, and it also is close to 1. And since we're dealing with decimals, if we have something that's super close, we really could go either way. So I'm going to say that 79 hundredths is closer to 1. Okay, and the reason for that, if I draw a bigger number line here, only this time I'm going to put 5/10, which is a half, and 1. Okay, so if I have 5/10 and I have 1, what would be half of that? Half of that would be 75 hundredths. Okay, and I can think of that in quarters. 1/4 is 25, 2 is 50, 3 is 75, and then 4 would be $1, right? So if I think of this as a number line, this is my ending number line. So this is 0, and then this is a whole. Okay, so 50 is right in the middle. 25 is in the middle of 0 and 50. 75 is in the middle of 50 and 100. Okay, so if 75 is right in the middle and we have 79, 79 would be maybe about right there. Okay, so yes, it is close to 5/10, but it's actually a little bit closer to 1. So I'm going to call this 1. Okay, and then because, again, that identity property of multiplication says any number times 1 is that number, I'm going to keep my 51. Because then that tells me that 1 times 51 is 51. So my estimate, my real answer, has to be close to 51.